We talk a lot about the climate here on the Damage Report, and we know there's a lot of good progressive politicians who are trying to rally people to center climate in their politics and convince people that this is something that we need to do more and better in dealing with the issue of the climate threat. So I thought it was important that we figure out if we're doing a good job of it. How should we be communicating around this? What are some ways that we might be undercutting our efforts? We're very lucky to be joined on the show today by climate change activist and author of the Activist Media Handbook, David Fenton. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here.
Damage is the right word.
There's some damage to report when it comes to the climate. I know that you've been critical of specifically Joe Biden and his administration's approach to communicating around this. Tell me a little bit about your concerns in that area.
Well, I'd like to praise him and criticize him. And he's done more than anybody. He cares about it. That's really terrific. Unfortunately, he's never given a primetime speech about the most important issue facing humanity, the climate crisis. I wish he would. He'll never flat out say climate change is being caused by burning oil, coal, and gas. It's important that people understand that's what causes it. And the president has unique access to the public mind like nobody else on a daily basis. So the bully pulpit, so-called, isn't being used well enough by this president to educate the public. He did finally use the word pollution in the State of the Union address. That's a big breakthrough. I would also counsel him, when you say it's an existential threat, a few people in a cafe in Paris know what you mean. It's not a common term for Americans. Pollution is the common term. And my advice to all of you is, since a lot of people still don't really understand climate change and can't explain it to you, and it's very hard to solve a problem people can't explain, right? What we know is the metaphor that works is to say we have put a blanket of pollution around the earth that is trapping heat that used to go back out to space. It's like when you were a kid and your dad would put an extra blanket on you while you were sleeping and you'd wake up sweating. That's what we're doing to the earth. And the good news is we know what to do about this. As we phase out pollution, the blanket will thin and we'll get back to normal temperatures. Meanwhile, under that blanket, all that energy has to go somewhere. So it causes stronger storms and droughts and heat waves and forest fires, because it's a lot of energy. You know how much energy it is? It's the same amount of energy as exploding 500,000 Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs in the atmosphere every day.
That sounds
can understand
like an existential
right?
threat.
Sorry?
That sounds like an existential threat, is what you're describing there.
It's a threat, definitely. It certainly is. Yeah, it's so I think the president, has passed the most comprehensive legislation on this issue, and kudos to him. But it's not nearly enough, so we have to educate and rouse the public. The media doesn't report on the issue very much. I don't know how big the hurricanes have to get until ABC, NBC, CBS will say this is being caused by burning oil, coal, and gas. They don't say it.
Yeah. We often will do actually coverage of how many of the segments even mention it. And even mentioning the climate crisis generally doesn't mean that you're pointing a clear finger at those who are causing it or what could be done to stop it from happening. So yeah, I think a lot more could be expected there. I'm glad that you pointed out some of the terminology that might be used that is intended to communicate what's going on, but might actually create a barrier to regular people understanding it. I've probably used that term in my own coverage of it. Is there anything else, either specific words or phrases or tactics, that people who want to do the right thing might unknowingly be using that could be creating that sort of distance?
Yeah, don't say net zero. Nobody knows what that means. I would say basically most of the language of the climate movement is proven to be pretty inscrutable to the public. Another term that I think unfortunately is not a good mass rallying cry, public term, is the term climate justice, which people in the movement use a lot. As I try to explain to people, we all want climate justice, and that's why we shouldn't call it that. Because when you say justice, what comes up in people's brain is the police and the court. So it does not make sense to most people. So we have to use common everyday language about this. Also, as you know, the only way we're going to solve climate change is to get political power. The only way we're going to get political power is to assemble majorities. So we have to use terms and approaches that bring the widest possible group of people together. So that means that while we have to, of course, stress the plight of the most vulnerable, ultimately the way we'll solve this is to convince most people that they're on the front lines of climate change, because they are.
Yeah. Francesca, you were going to jump in?
No, I guess I think this is fascinating. And I think my question is about how I get the blanket, I get the, we've basically, we're smothering ourselves, we're smothering the earth in, I don't even know if like CO2 emissions is the right way, but we're smothering the earth in pollution. But how do you say it means life or death for the future of humanity on this planet? Is it just that? Or is there another phraseology other than existential crisis?
Well, it depends who you're talking to. It threatens everybody's health. It threatens the economy enormously. It threatens people's prosperity. It threatens their property. It threatens their security. These are the things that everyday people are concerned about. It threatens the price of food. It threatens to send tens of millions of refugees out of their homes all around the world, hundreds of millions, really. I mean, it sounds crazy, sci-fi, and radical, but it is a scientific fact that if we don't change in a hurry, it is likely that we will have to abandon all of the coastal cities of the world. Mm-hmm. That's the Republican climate change platform. Force the abandonment of all the coastal cities of the world. That's the business plan of the oil, coal, and gas companies.
Yes.
That sounds crazy, but that's basic physics.
Yeah.
I guess related to that, another question that I have is, there's a reason Biden isn't explicitly talking about the oil and gas industry, and that's because he doesn't want to antagonize them and ultimately knows that unless we're willing to take the economic hit, we are dependent on oil and gas, sadly, for now, right? Remember, he was hounded after saying basically what I just said, that for now we're going to be dependent on oil and gas for at least another 10 years. Remember, Fox News had a field day with that. What's your response to how he can sort of thread that needle with transitioning and getting off of coal and oil and natural gas, but then also, speaking to the American people at large?
Well, what I would do is thank the oil, coal, and gas company and the workers, because they brought us amazing prosperity. We can heat our homes, we can fly anywhere. We have this incredible economy, and there's no question that fossil fuels help bring us that economy. But we now know that we can't keep using those things. We need to go on a phase out plan. Otherwise, we're going to damage the economy and damage the life support systems of the earth. So it's just reality. And we have to face reality. Like when we're attacked by a foreign power, we mobilize for war. That's what we need to do on this issue. So we can't sugarcoat this. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're in a race against time. All the carbon that's going up today, all the pollution is going to stay there for centuries. Mm-hmm. So we have to do this in a hurry. So we can't do that without the public understanding the level of mobilization that is needed. And it's not a sacrifice, really. Almost all the clean energy and transportation technologies that we need are cheaper and better and save enormous amounts of money. The thing about the sun and the wind is they can never go up in price and they can never run out. So this is the kind of thing I wish the president would explain to the public.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I'm just curious where you fall on one sort of strategic back and forth that I've heard. So some people who I think care a lot about the climate, I've heard say that they feel like a lot of the rhetoric around climate specifically and climate change has been like the well has been poisoned for conservatives. So they think we should instead shift to talking about pollution specifically, like just more generalized environmental concerns, pollution that might not trigger some of the right wing like belief that this is all a big hoax or whatever. Nobody can really deny toxins in the water or what happened following the train wreck in East Palestine. So what do you think about those who want to shift the conversation away from being explicitly around the climate crisis?
Look, it's true that the word climate has been poisoned with many conservatives. At the same time, we need conservatives, some of them, to unite with us to solve this problem. We're not going to get them to unite if they don't understand what it is. Now, I've bought videos about climate change into the social media feeds of conservatives, where conservatives explain how climate change threatens conservative values. That works. The problem is that all conservatives see online is it's a hoax. So if you change the information flow, which we can do, it's not only the Russians that can buy ads on Facebook, to change public opinion, then we'll get some of them to come aboard. There are great conservatives on climate change. They don't have much of a platform. You should have some of them on. They're pretty amazing.
I would love to hear some recommendations, actually.
Okay,
I'm not
sure. I'll give you those online.
Okay, thank you. Well, fascinating stuff. Hopefully we can continue the conversation another time because Biden got some legislation passed, but I'm hoping that following this election, whoever becomes president, whether it's Biden or someone else, can double down on that. And to do so, they're going to have to rally the right amount of public opinion. So, David, really appreciate you joining us and lending your expertise. Thank you.
Sure, pleasure.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.